Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strengthen Your Walk. I'm Kim Crable.
And I'm Casey Gomes.
Thanking you for joining us for this series, Confront and Conquer, providing biblical principles to reveal, revive, and restore the warrior inside every man. Well, Casey, you have a quote, and you mentioned it last time a little bit. I love it. It's worth repeating.
So often I hear people say, God will provide. I'm going to wait because God will provide, and I'm just going to keep praying and waiting. And what I find myself saying often back is, He already did provide. Now go forth and do something with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point in the series, I know that God has surely spoken at least one thing to each of us. What has He said to you? What are you going to do with it? And really, why does it matter? That's the question. You know, as God is talking to us, and you made a good point when we were talking privately about, so many times, God has come and He has mentioned, He has said something to us, but we're just still so doubting it, just like Gideon did.
Yeah, I think if you look at all of those warriors and all of those male heroes in the Bible, they doubted His word at first. They said, you must have the wrong guy. Whether it's Noah or Moses or Gideon, on down the line, they all had doubt, and they thought to themselves, not me. You gotta be thinking of someone else.
Right.
It took several tries for God to get through to them with His word, but they all doubted it, and I think that's very normal for all of us to do.
Yeah, and I think about with the warriors that you spoke about, and with you as the warrior that you are. I think, what if we don't move forward? What if we don't look into that briefcase? What if we feel so condemned, which is not of God that we've talked about? But what if you don't do it? I mean, I think about Peter, who, he denied Christ. I think about Jonah. He ran in the opposite direction. Moses, a murderer. We can look at all these people, but yet we see what they accomplished for God. We look at the people they influenced for Christ. And we have to ask ourselves, and you have to ask yourself, what if I don't open up this briefcase? What if I just keep shoving it under the rug? What if I just keep pretending it's not there? Casey, you shared one of your favorite quotes. I have something that I just love, and it just means so much to me. And I don't know where I saw it, and I don't know who wrote it, but I'm going to share it with you. It says, the quote is, "It ran in your family until it ran into you." And I love that. It being whatever is in your briefcase. It being whatever is trying to condemn you. It being whatever's been passed down through the generations. Alcoholism, addiction, abuse, giving up on dreams, just trying to survive. This quote reminds me that someone somewhere can step in and stop the cycle. And by doing so, you begin a new theme for the next generation. That's the power of God's work in our lives. But it has to start somewhere.
Yep.
And why shouldn't it be me? I know it's daunting at first, but we've seen this. And Casey, talk about this just a minute. We have seen people, I've seen men like you struggle with, do I say it? Do I speak? And the moment the hurt is spoken, there is a connection, something miraculous begins to happen. It is worth, even at the very beginning, a ministry becomes active. So you've seen it?
I've seen it individually and in groups, both what you're talking about. So to what Miss Kim's alluding to, it's once you lift that burden and share it, and you're doing it in a communal sense with men, they start to do it too. And the bonds between you, whether it's a group of men in a men's group or your friends around you that you've just never really engaged in that way, it changes the conversation. But there's another side that's very personal, which is, and you've said this in your work in your books, burdens to blessings, confront and conquer.
Yes.
Once we're willing to go there, and those burdens are dealt with, or we've worked through them, we open ourselves up to really start to achieve what we want to achieve in our hearts and what God is telling us to achieve, because we've dropped those anchors, just like the Hebrews quote. We've dropped those weights, and the other side of it can be very freeing and it's a big relief for us, because it's like, oh wait, now that I've shed that, I'm going to go forward in a new way that I maybe wouldn't have done otherwise. Yes,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I just will encourage you to really think about what's in your briefcase. We've given you a lot to consider. in this series. This has been a lot, and I know that. But you know what? You have generations before you. In my family, my brother stepped up and said, the alcoholism stops here with me. And, it's changed the trajectory of everyone who comes after him. And, that's a gift that we can give to the next generation. Whatever's in your briefcase, I know you have a lot to consider. I know God is asking you to step out and do some big things and make some big choices. It will mean stepping out of your comfort zone and pushing toward that potential that we talked about with Gideon. God sees it in you. He sees it in all of us. But you'll have to confront and conquer doubts just like Gideon did, just like you did, Casey, just like we all do. But here's the thing, you can, because God has promised to be with us. God tells us in Deuteronomy 30:12, which is one of my favorite scriptures, that which he is asking you to do is not too difficult. It is not beyond your reach. So, what is it that God has been saying to you? And who will be affected if you don't? As you contemplate what God would have you to do this week, think about a rubber band. It has to stretch to reach its potential, doesn't it? Is God asking you to stretch? What have you been putting off that perhaps this time you're ready to put behind you? What have you been putting off that you're ready to put behind you? And remember, friend, like I always say, we can't conquer what we don't confront. But as we confront, Romans 8:37 assures you that God has already made you more than a conqueror through him. Hold on to that. And thank you for joining us. We pray this Confront and Conquer series will strengthen your walk.